Welcome to the South Circle Podcast. My name is Hank. With me, as always, is Ben.
We're talking about weird shit today, apparently. I was just now informed that, what is it, Two Stupid Dogs?
Two Stupid Dogs.
That's weird as hell. That scene is weird as hell anyway, but I'm going to judge the show on it.
Judge the entire show by that one scene I showed you.
Yeah, dog turned inside out. The other one, like, swallowed a T-Rex skeleton and was walking around. Like, it was... There were chickens inside of the dog. It was... Yeah.
Put him back.
Put him back.
Yeah, so today we're going to be running through a little history lesson about sort of the history kind of Cartoon Network and like how, and the progression of shows that ended up leading to Adventure Time. That'll kind of be our stopping point, and we'll do a podcast on Adventure Time after that show ends, which should be relatively within the next couple of months or something. At some point, I don't think they've given that a date yet. Even.
No, it just says 2018. So
yeah, so at some point that show will end, and then we'll do our podcast on it then.
And are we? Yeah, I guess maybe you should have talked about it beforehand. But would you say there is a definitive like pre and post Adventure Time sort of thing with cartoons? Because I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm old. Maybe I'm just old, but I look at like Cartoon Network or whatever today, and I'm like, there's a lot of garbage here. Was there always garbage? And
there was always garbage.
There was just some gems.
It's phases. It's the way these networks work come in phases, and we'll talk about that. But there are certainly I would say before Adventure Time there was a low point. Like Adventure Time kind of marked
an upturn,
and that stuff that led up to Adventure Time that we'll also talk about kind of marked like a resurgence in Cartoon Network doing stuff, whereas they had a period where they kind of just weren't doing anything before then.
Sure.
So honestly, I would say now would not be the lowest time, although I don't really watch TV at all anymore, so I don't have a great sense of what what's actually on Cartoon Network right now.
Yeah, I don't consistently watch any TV. If I'm watching a show, it's definitely not like on syndicated television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
The worst way to watch anything?
I mean, there are worse ways.
Name one.
Illegal cable where it's all weird and you're not watching clean image.
I guess that's just like that's still on TV
staticky.
Though, right?
I mean, theoretically,
so it's encompassed. Anyway.
Watching it on a legal site that gives your computer a virus and your computer breaks.
I'd still rather have to deal with that than fucking bullshit.
Commercials.
I mean, the fact that you're paying for cable and also getting ads is kind of ridiculous.
You're not wrong.
I would say
wrong.
without running any hard numbers, just based on my experience, I would say more ads than network television. But maybe it just feels that way.
It depends. Depends on what you're watching.
That's true.
Watching HBO, during the thing you're watching, there aren't more ads than on a network show.
Yeah, that's...
if you're watching TNT... they play a shit ton of ads during their movies.
I mean,
so
to say something positive about cable or satellite or whatever, like they play ridiculousness like 24 hours a day, so that's okay. It's the same 12 episodes. It's like a clip show. It is a washed up skater, a girl who thinks she's hotter than she is, and a random guest each episode. Oh, there's also another dude, but I forget what his shtick is. And it's just clip shows of like, it's like America's Funniest Home Videos, but modern for the young crowd.
I would think for the version for the young crowd would just be YouTube videos, but okay.
Yeah, no, we're putting YouTube videos. It's like I don't know. It's like I don't even have
Tosh
a good-
point oh.
Yeah, sure. Except worse. There's less substance.
God. Oh God, no. I
I
can't.
mean, it's good.
Man.
It's good trash TV because it's literally just clips. Like if you're lazy and there's nothing on, sure, I'll watch like some guy ram his balls on a pole while he's trying to skateboard. Why not? But yeah, it's 24 hours. It's always on.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. Oh.
So, the story of Cartoon Network kind of starts with, so Cartoon Network was basically created because at some point in like 86 or something, Ted Turner's broadcasting company, TBS, like bought MGM, then had to like immediately sell it back because they had acquired too many companies with too much debt. But during the exchange, they ended up keeping like all of MGM's film library. So they had all of the MGM cartoons. So eventually, when they're like creating cable channels, they have this huge library of cartoons. They start airing some of it on like TNT and other networks, but eventually they create Cartoon Network as just a place to show this library of cartoons. So like they've got MGM cartoons, they showed the Looney Tunes stuff, showed Popeye stuff, that and Hanna-Barbera, because that's also
Okay.
also they bought them in like 91. So that was like, that's what Cartoon Network started as, is just airing these set of old cartoons. And as it went along, like most cable networks do, it starts out just airing reruns of stuff, and eventually hits a point of saturation that it's like worth it for them to invest in creating their own programming.
Yeah.
Like Nickelodeon, I think went through the same thing, but Cartoon Network, it's called Cartoon Network. It's like completely focused on animated stuff. And the first thing they created is a fucking weird show called Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which is also kind of the start of Adult Swim. Like the guys who created that went on to create Adult Swim. It's created by Mike Lazo. And what Space Ghost Coast to Coast was just, they took a terrible show that nobody cares about, Space Ghost, original Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and repurposed all the characters into very dirt cheap animation into like a late night talk show format, where they would like interview people with like the interviewer like acting as Space Ghost, and then they would just reuse that footage of the interviewee without the things he was being talked to and rewrite the entire episode around that. So they would just take the whatever they said out of context completely and reuse it however they needed to.
Was there? I'm looking at it now. Was there like a character on it that was like a big talking cat thing, like humanoid cat dude?
Brack? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know. Other than that.
I just recall I was like possibly the only interaction I've had with this show. If it is this show, there was like it was a cartoon and they were doing like, it was like a news segment or something. And the dude like dropped his sheet, or I don't know. He just started like going off, and it was hilarious as a kid. And it's on the fringe of my memory, but I can't recall like what the scene was or what the show was or anything. Might be it though.
Okay. Well,
Maybe.
I'll send you a picture of Brack, just because he was one of the other characters that sort of, I don't know why that didn't embed.
That would be it. Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
Brack.
Okay.
Yeah, he was he's also from the Space Ghost thing, and he had his own show which was terrible. His show was really bad. It was like a family sitcom weird thing. But I mean so like the big things that came out of Space Ghost, like Sea Lab 2021 was pretty big, and then Aqua Teen Hunger Force came out of that. It was like their first like oh, we're making original animation, but sort of animating it in this same style.
Sure.
And it has a similar sense of humor. But so Space Coast to Coast is like airing a late at night. It's more intended for an adult audience, despite being animation. So that kind of hit on this thing of when Cartoon Network then went on to want to make more shows, they had broader ideas about what they wanted to do. They didn't just want to be like Nickelodeon and aim their cartoons at kids. They wanted to aim their cartoons at a broader audience. So both kids and college kids.
Yeah.
They had like and also that also they wanted to target not just boys to an extent. So that was sort of influencing them. And even when they premiered a lot of their first shows that came out, they did it through with like Space Ghost as like a host introducing like a segment with this stuff, which is super weird considering like, yeah, let's have this bizarre character introduced in these kid shows. It's just a weird thing. But so the next kind of move they did was, well, actually, so that's the Cartoon Network side. So on the other side, Hanna-Barbera like hadn't created anything for a long time. Like obviously the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons, Scooby-Doo, like Flintstones, like those kind of things, they would just they'd be rerunning stuff on Cartoon Network and other places, but they hadn't created anything new. So the first new thing they made in a long time came out in 1993, and it was the show Two Stupid Dogs, which was coincidentally about two dogs that were very stupid.
What?
And also there was a backup segment called Super Secret Squirrel, which was a remake of a different old Hanna-Barbera cartoon, Secret Squirrel, that nobody cares about.
Sounds right.
But yeah. So the big things about this are just that it was like a new show for, I think the last thing Hanna-Barbera had done was the Smurfs before they did this.
Oh,
That was like their last hit.
Okay.
Well, I think they'd done other things, but that was like their last thing that was popular. So it's definitely a very different thing. Notable, it had influenced, and the guy who created Ren and Stimpy worked on it, which you can kind of tell in certain parts. But Two Stupid Dogs is kind of like Ren and Stimpy, but like turned its way like on it. You didn't see that from that clip, but in general, it's like the energy is turned way down.
Yeah.
In terms of like phoneticness, like it would get there with weird parts, but a lot of it was much more relaxed. Because one of the dogs is like, the big dog specifically, like,
he seemed pretty lazy.
won't talk. He's very lazy and basically only talks about food. He just gets hungry. So it's like a more chill thing, but also it has like a sort of minimalist take. It's trying to emulate some of the Hanna-Barbera stuff in terms of being minimalist in its backgrounds and a cheaper show, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But the really important part about this is just, it was Hanna-Barbera getting back into animation, and two of the people who worked as art directors on the show are Craig McCracken and Gendy Tarakovsky, who become super important with Cartoon Network going forward. And this is sort of their first show that they worked on. This is like where they got their start working on this show.
Gotcha.
And like Two Stupid Dogs, like when I remember watching, it was like some days I'd wake up super early to see like the cartoons that run early in the morning on like regular TV, and Two Stupid Dogs would be on occasionally. I was like, wow, what is this show? Like I liked it, but it was also that like rarely seen early morning stuff.
Yeah.
Like before school or whatever. So the kind of the kickoff for Cartoon Network's own stuff came from, there was this show they aired called What a Cartoon, which was just them airing pilots of cartoons that they had either acquired or like paid to get made. And if you know anything about pilots are generally bad.
Yeah.
So, what a cartoon? Rough watch. Rough watch generally. But a lot of things came out of it. A lot of stuff didn't come out. A lot of stuff that like never got anything else worked on it because it's just a failed pilot, but they did air a lot of stuff. And kind of the way that they went about. So early on in Cartoon Network, I assume it still works. I don't know how it works beyond these first couple episodes, but I've listened to interviews so they're talking about it where like focus testing was a big part about them picking what shows they want to develop. So like Dexter's Lab was the first full show they produced because it like won a poll basically.
Yeah, I was reading that a little bit. Like they had and that was for some of the other ones later too, right? Like I think it said Codename Kids Next Door. Later on, like that would win a big pick weekend or something.
Yeah,
which is better than them fucking like just grabbing whatever trash came along.
I have one. There's one big notable exception to this rule, but I'll talk about when we get to it. So I think it was just, and like if you talk to executives, it's like we like this brother-sister dynamic. Like not really. The way that stuff ends up working of what actually gets picked up is pretty simple a lot of the times, but Gendy Karakovsky he worked on Two Stupid Dogs. He has kind of a track record. He's like a super talented guy. And kind of the big thing about what a cartoon did was just, it was like a way to search talent of them. It was them going, we know they're talented animators out there. We just want to try and find some of them. And then once we figure out who they are, we can go in business with them and just have them keep making shows, which is kind of what happened. Like, it's not like Dexter's Lab is the only show Gendy Karakovsky went on to make. They just got in business with him and then kind of worked with him going forward. And the same with Craig McCracken. So that's like the big thing of, and the other thing about these pilots is that they were committed to animating, like paying for animation, and not like fully. They wanted to throw back to, because they'd been airing lots of Looney Tunes stuff, which is much higher quality animation than you generally see on TV. So they were kind of into the idea of paying for full animated things rather than like the cheapo tactics you could have in a standard Hanna-Barbera cartoon, for example.
Yeah.
With like where you put a tie on a bear so that you don't have to draw his neck.
Yeah.
So that these are, so in a lot of cases these shows are like they're kids shows, but they're also sort of animation showpieces because they're just talented animators getting to do their thing.
Yeah.
So they have, which makes them more interesting to older audiences because they just have like there's like quality to them. Just sort of the idea of like, we're not just making dirt cheap stuff to entertain kids. We want to try and bring in other people, which means you have to put a little more work into it. And we just believe in talented creators.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever watch Dexter's Lab?
Yeah. Not a ton. So for any of these, even like watching them at all or having the opportunity to watch them, I should say, there wasn't a lot of opportunities because we never had cable or satellite and still actually don't. So
Gotcha.
It was like, if I'm going over to a friend's house and that friend has cable or satellite, there is a chance that I might watch it. The biggest source was like, of all things, at my grandparents' cabin, they had satellite because Grandpa wanted to watch whatever game was on at any given time that he was out there. Like, you didn't want to miss that. So as a result, that was also like the main source of cartoons that I had.
Yeah, no, I
So
didn't have cartoon. I didn't get cable till like 2001, at the end of
okay,
2001. So, but I had my best friends that I would hang out with all the time had cable.
nice.
So I
Yeah.
watched a lot of this stuff through them. And before that, my grandmother had cable when I would and she would like pick me up from school when I was very little. So that was
Okay.
I experienced a lot of Nickelodeon stuff that way.
Yeah, and I like Dexter's Lab definitely got watched now. There is one of what's his nemesis? What's his
Mandark.
Mandark. I fucking there's one section of an episode that's like drilled into my mind, and it's like his parents were like hippies or something. And it's like him like waking up in the morning and he's doing like his evil laugh, and he's like doing it throughout his routine. And I don't know, it's like drilled in my mind. I can
Yeah.
vividly recall.
Yeah, there's definitely Dexter's Lab is definitely a show that has sequences that are just fucking unbelievable. Like there are parts that are like whatever, but there are these certain things that are just really good. I really like that there's like a musical episode that's like Dexter's backstory
Oh no.
that's really good. It's like but it's like an opera is the way it's
Okay.
presented.
Oh yeah. All right. Jesus.
It's really good. And it has like there are plenty of shows that have come since that have done the boy genius with a secret lab, like basically just ripped that bit off
Jimmy
wholesale.
Neutron.
That's definitely one of them. So yeah, it's just kind of a good idea, and also I get why it would appeal. Like the character of Dee Dee being so prominent in terms of Cartoon Network's broader appeal push of also trying to get girls to watch some of this stuff too. I understand why that would appeal to them.
And the just that like that sibling dynamic worked really
Yeah.
well, like without
Yeah, totally.
making one better.
You just
Yeah.
you want that idea of siblings just fucking with each other.
Yeah,
is
no,
so such a
100%.
real thing.
100%, dude.
So it's pretty good. Yeah, and just Gendy's style of like those sharp edges, those sharp lines, really good stuff.
Yeah.
It definitely stood out, and it's of these like first three kind of shows they made, it was easily the best. So the next one was Johnny Bravo, which was, about a character who sucks.
I love Johnny Bravo, but in like clip show form, like the fucking like best of pickup lines Johnny Bravo. I love
Yeah.
that shit, and I really don't. I tried watching like a couple episodes. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna leave this and remember it how I want to remember it.
It definitely those episodes drag.
Yeah,
He's kind of like Duke Nukem, except at least the show recognizes that he sucks.
yeah, no, like someone that muscular getting shit kicked so frequently.
I mean, he just gets the shit kicked out of him. It's true. It's fucking.
I do
Yeah.
think that one of my favorite lines came out of that show, where he's like trying to pick up some chick. It's like, I think it just started like, I told you I already have a boyfriend. He's like, well, you look like the kind of girl that could use two. And I'm like, yeah, fucking wow, okay, good shit, top quality pickup line. How can they say no?
How can they say no?
Is that not a compliment? Saying that you look like someone that needs two boyfriends?
Yeah, and the other show that they did was Cow and Chicken, which had a backup I Am Weasel, and then I Am Weasel shortly after became its own show.
Yeah.
And that's a weird. Cow and Chicken is fucking weird, and I don't.
Yeah, no, that's I clicked on the thing just to like look at it to see if it's what I thought it was, and it definitely is, and that was like surreal. even to like little kid me. Like there was just I don't know. I don't think I ever sat down and watched it.
I mean, again, this was the area I would just watch hours and hours of TV. So I watched a lot of Cow and Chicken, but it's definitely not one I would like revisit.
Yeah,
But I
no,
liked it.
100%.
I certainly liked it at the time. It definitely a lot of this. It's like that kind of Ren and Stimpy humor where it's just fucking weird and gross and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's definitely in that vein. And the devil is a major character in it,
Yeah,
which I guess is like and like you can see the similarities that lead to like Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, I guess, in some ways, but
sure.
that's a much more conventional show, even.
Way more
I would
palatable.
say. Yeah,
To
way
me.
less like just fucking actively designed to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It lasted for 4 seasons, 52 episodes.
Well,
And I'm Weasel is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's a dynamic of one character who's the best, and then the villain who hates him but is an idiot.
sure.
It's actually not the way that dynamic usually works. My problem with it is the way you want that dynamic to work is like the one who is, I don't know. You'd want the bad guy to be smarter, but just always fail because he's evil, I guess.
Sure.
That the part where
The traditional
the bad guy is also just a fucking moron is like fun, but also I feel like there's less tragedy in it.
well, I'm not going for
no-
tragedy.
You don't have the tragedy of like the Coyote and Roadrunner.
Yeah.
But that I Weasel had 79 episodes. So.
Jesus. Man. I mean, I guess people like
But I think that's like
what
half length things, I think.
what demographic do you think was mostly watching it? If you had to
I don't
hazard
know.
a
I
guess.
don't know. I mean, it was probably both watched. I mean, I was watching it. I was a kid, so that's the only demographic I really know. I don't know how popular it was outside of that.
Maybe it's just that's like
Or I mean, people in college who were stoned. Like that's definitely a big
I mean,
demographic of Cartoon Network shows.
looking at some of the shows that I just like catch glimpses of, like that wouldn't surprise me if like a lot of them the main demographic was kids, but then it was just like kids who just they don't care what they watch as long as they're watching something like on TV. Mm-hmm. So
No, I mean, and that's
makes
the Cartoon Network brand, I would say, to the extent to which I feel like when they're doing what like the company is like built for is these weird shows that are like totally appeal to kids, but also like are built to appeal to stoned college kids who are into animation.
yeah.
Like that's their wheelhouse of like finding the overlap between those two groups, and if they can catch anyone else, that's a plus.
Yeah.
So the thing I know more about this next series, which is the Powerpuff Girls, created by Craig McCracken,
Hell yeah, dude.
because this was like probably I think this is the most popular of all these first shows because it's the only one that got a movie.
And a shitty reboot.
And a shitty reboot, yes. So which all points to it being more popular. But the thing with the Powerpuff Girls, first off, is that it didn't focus test well. Mostly, I think, because they were focus testing with probably for their kid boy audience. But they just believed in it. Like at every level, it didn't focus test well, but Cartoon Network was committed to it. They believed in it, and they stuck with it, and they aired it, and then it was a huge hit. And when Craig McCracken was making it, I know he only really assumed he was really making it to appeal to like a college audience who liked animation. He didn't really know it would be popular with kids at all, and had kind of no idea about that.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that was definitely, but then it caught on with girls too. Like it became super popular because it's really good.
It's just a good Girls. Series.
Of all these shows, that's the one I own on DVD.
Yeah, like that's one I watched a ton of it, but I can't, like, again, I just can't remember. I don't think I've never revisited it, but I would be totally down. Like if someone's like, "Yo, I want to just put on the Powerpuff Girls like DVD or something," be like, "Yeah, sure, fuck it, put it on. I don't care. Sounds great."
And I really like the movie too.
I do not recall the movie at all. I don't think. What's the plot? What's baseline plot?
It's their origin story and really it's the origin story of like Mojo Jojo. Also. And him becoming a
Maybe I did see it. Maybe my sister had it. I think my sister
It's kind of the point where the animation changed over, where the style changed too.
I mean, I'm not going to remember that shit.
Yeah,
that's all. Fair. No, I think maybe either we had the movie or we had like one of the DVDs or something that gets released, you know, like
I mean, because there's an episode that reveals like Mojo Jojo created the Powerpuff Girls accidentally, kind of, and then the movie kind of just expands on that story idea.
I just remember like broccoli, cheesy broccoli. Was that in the movie? Was that a show? Do you know at all?
That would if that's a thing, that would have been an episode. That's not the movie. The movie is kind of like the plot of that Planet of the Apes reboot.
Okay. Oh, like, yeah.
Where Mojo Jojo like kidnaps apes from the zoo and turns them all into Mojo Jojos, basically. Mm-hmm. Which was why I saw that Planet of the Apes remake where he's like an experimental ape that then makes all the other apes smart. I'm like, I remember the Powerpuff Girls movie.
Why am I here? I've already seen it.
Exactly. Well, then I didn't see it because I'd already seen it. I was like, it can't be as good as the thing it's going to remind me of constantly. is my problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would agree. Without even having seen the Powerpuff Girls movie, I would rather go to that than the Planet of the Apes reboot.
The other like twist on it is just everyone hates the Powerpuff Girls until the end of that movie. Okay, because they're like weird monster children. Like there's a big scene where they play tag in the city and just fucking wreck it. Wow, because they're just so powerful.
Yeah,
I mean, don't understand
as they do.
Yeah, so everyone hates them. Professor gets thrown in jail or something for creating them.
I mean, yeah, he played Frankenstein and decided it'd be cool to fucking play, be God, create life.
Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of like that's like the first era, basically. Ed, Edd n Eddy kind of starts after that, but that's kind of unrelated of its origins. It's just they put it under that same brand because it was so big. And then Ed, Edd n Eddy is like outlived all these shows, just like ran forever.
I was looking at it like 10 years, and everything else is like max, like 6 maybe.
Space Ghost Coast to Coast ran for 10 years, and it was but it like super infrequently. Like they would do maybe an episode a year sometimes. Mm-hmm. But Ed, Edd n Eddy then surpassed it as I think it's the longest running. It was the longest running Cartoon Network show up until that point. I don't know if it still is. I think it might be.
Maybe, yeah. Dexter's Laboratory was 7. It looks like.
Yeah, Dexter's Laboratory was another one. Like at the end of that show's life, they were not making that many episodes. I know. I remember being there at the time. Like you talk about weird release schedules now with these, like some of these shows, just like an episode would come out randomly. Like,
Nice.
oh, there's like a new
Nice.
episode this Saturday, Friday, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not even, it wasn't even like appointment television. It was just like, oh, maybe I'll see that when it's rerun someday. I don't know. It was weird.
So, Ed, Edd and Eddy is one that I also saw a fair bit of. Probably just because it ran for so long that like in that time you had to see some of it at some point.
Yeah.
I don't. I have a desire to go back to it because I remember even less of it than the Powerpuff Girls, but at the same time I don't, because that was like the show that, I don't know, I would always like, whenever I had, especially in the morning, like my breakfast, which was 99% of the time like cereal, I want to be like reading, like I'd have like a Calvin and Hobbes book or like a little whatever book I was reading, or I'd be want to like watch cartoons while I had my cereal. That's just, I don't know, wanted to eat while watching something or reading something. And Ed, Edd and Eddy made me not want to eat cereal while watching it. Like, that's like probably, I think that is the true origin of like, I'm watching It's Always Sunny and I'm like, I really can't watch this show while eating. At least like certain foods. Everybody's all like fucking gross and sweaty. Like, I can't watch it. And I don't like, there should be a reason. But like, yeah. I just vividly recall like I had to turn off the TV and I had nothing to do. It was like the only thing on.
Fair. I would say in the, like, if you consider the shows it like that preceded it, there were certainly grosser shows.
Oh no, 100%. But that's like the one that I,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, that's fair.
fucking
Like, that was honestly,
saw
that's
more.
like toning it, like, as gross as it is, that is a toned down show
yeah.
compared to its predecessors, I would say. Although it's grosser than like Doug. Some other like
I mean, that's like,
I mean, in some ways, although it's way less gross than Doug in like some other ways. Just like, but not in the like bodily
explain.
orifice.
I don't recall
the
Doug
Doug
being gross
sucks.
at all. I mean, yeah,
Just
I was
Doug
gonna say,
sucks.
isn't it like the vanilla flavor of cartoons?
That's what I mean.
Like,
That's
this
all I
fucking-
mean.
Yeah, I started watching Doug, and now I just don't want to eat at all. Just kind of want to lie down, not wake up.
Yeah. So I have some other interesting info is just like how long some of this stuff when it aired in syndication. So like Dexter's Lab and Johnny Bravo like kept going in syndication till like 2008 and then came back in 2012 to 14, which sort of points you to, I wonder if Cartoon Network might have been out of shows in 2012. But or whatever. That was like a point where they went back to stuff. But like Powerpuff Girls aired in syndication continuously until 2015. Ed, Edd and Eddy
Sounds right.
kept on in syndication till 2014, though that's less time in syndication because it ran till 2009. And then like shows like Cow and Chicken, I Am Weasel kind of would take years off here and there. They kind of would, like, they were on the air for, like, from 2005 2007 in reruns, then came back just for 2009, then we're back on 2012 to 13, and then went away again. It's just
Sometimes you
weird
need a
how
break.
channels work. Yeah. So then there's other stuff. There's Courage the Cowardly. Mike, Lou, and Og, I don't even remember. I don't think that's a show I ever watched.
Yeah, I don't fucking recall this at all.
Oh, apparently it's Russian.
I absolutely know it.
Yeah.
I'm a good fiance. I know Russian television.
Yeah, that one didn't... I kind of recognize it, but that one definitely didn't feel like it fit with the rest of it.
Let's pop a... Oh. Fucking weird. Yeah, it looks like
that feels
slightly
more
familiar.
like a... I mean, honestly, it looks more like a Nickelodeon show to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is giving me like Rugrat vibes almost, with the drawing style.
Or like Wild Thornberry style.
Yeah. I'll have to watch. I'll have to check out the original Russian.
But so the real show from that I guess started at the exact same time was Courage the Cowardly Dog, which I definitely did watch a lot of, which kind of came out of this also came out of What a Cartoon, which is just like there's a dog, he lives in the middle of nowhere, and then fucking horror movie stuff happens to the old couple that he lives with, and he tries to save them. Well, really, he tries to save uh the elderly woman and leave the cranky old man to die because he sucks.
Yeah.
It's,
I didn't do a ton of Courage. I don't even know if it was like I think part of it was I think this stuff didn't like scare me. Some of it like freaked me out a little, as that show would do. But I'm
Yes.
pretty sure my siblings, like my parents saw it, they're like, nah, we're gonna change the channel. Go back to it's like my brother is 4 years younger than me, so like they didn't need any of that.
yeah, that one. Yeah, that one definitely went for directly off-putting stuff, for sure. Just weird alien horror stuff, and just like with a base that wasn't that weird. It gets into like the hapless hero kind of character, like
Yeah.
someone who's trying to do the right thing and just gets shit on over and over again.
Yep.
It's a classic. It's classic elements. Yeah, I liked Courage. Courage felt like, I don't know. It was the wrong way to explain it, because I think like it could be great, but then it could be also super boring if like the thing just didn't work or whatever. It's like an episode where there's an evil chicken is the thing, I think.
Great.
Something. I don't remember. Just that like that setting of nowhere of like complete desolation was just kind of weird.
I mean, that was pretty natural for me.
So that's why you're related.
Yeah. I'm like,
It
huh.
was too real.
Yeah, that's why it was freaky, dude. It was like seeing my hometown.
And there was Sheep in the Big City, which I love. It's a show that I love that did not really take off at all, but it got 2 seasons. It had just a weird sense of humor that was different from any of these other shows. It more like there's a character who's an angry scientist, not a mad scientist. It's like just
Yeah.
like that kind of like laid back, just side of off wordplay humor. There's like a whole lineage of stuff I think that leads out of that. But it's kind of like trying to be a modern Rocky and Bullwinkle in a lot of ways. Oh, also the
Okay.
creator of it created the Nickelodeon show Kablam. If anyone's heard of that, which is was a super like inventive kind of weird show that mixed with different styles and like was like lots of little shorts.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what else the creator Mo Williams went on to do, because I know there was something.
If only we had.
Oh right,
sort
he
of,
went on to work on Codenames Kids Next Door is the big thing.
Okay.
That was the big thing he went on to work on. Just kind of like, honestly, when I didn't, why I ended up eventually giving Codenames Kids Next Door another shot after I initially didn't love it, and it kind of turned me around when I realized that he had worked on it. Time Squad happened. That kind of wasn't a thing. It was like, okay. I never got into that one.
I had to. I mean, okay. It should tell you how much I know about it that I looked it up to like see what it looked like, and then immediately
Yeah.
forgot and had to click on it again because I forgot in the 30 seconds.
It's like a modern take on like Peabody and Sherman, kind
Yeah.
of. But like, more
No,
modern
there's
and gruff.
There's a big gap in here where I don't know fucking any of these shows.
But also that's then Samurai Jack, which was Evgeny Karakovsky's kind of next thing. He also like helped make Powerpuff Girls, and you can see
That's
his
not
like,
listed
sensibilities.
on this list.
I don't know what list you're looking at.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia list. How dare you?
I'm looking at the list of uh, all of Cartoon Network stuff, not just the cartoon branded stuff.
Well, you could have mentioned that before the podcast started. Look at this guy upstaging me.
Again, that one's
No, it's fine. It's fine.
yeah. I'm just saying, like, this was another big one just because this was like the big thing with Samurai Jack is it was completely an animator show first, where they just like would storyboard stuff and then figure out the dialogue later,
Yeah.
which is like a big signal point for like because a lot of the way these shows get I know Adventure Time it's created by its storyboard artists. Like they figure out the whole thing, and then it's kind of finished from there. That's like the process for how a lot of animation that this stuff goes into is like this animation first thing. It's kind of script being secondary instead of like writing out scripts or whatever and figuring stuff out that way.
Yeah.
I don't know the extent to which that was done in the shows preceding this. So just for Samurai Jack, it specifically was very primarily an art showcase with dialogue being
No,
a
dude,
secondary
100%.
consideration.
100%. Yeah, that was one I never got into, and I don't know why. Because, like, looking at it now and again later, I'm like, yeah, this is stuff I like. What was I thinking? What was I doing?
It's really good.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a weird one because it's like starts very plot heavy with like a story at the center of it, but then it just like ends up meandering until they made that sequel series that's like a conclusion to the story,
Sure.
which I haven't finished.
I haven't started.
It was good, but I heard not great things about how it ended, I would say.
So you're just leaving it?
I'll finish it at some point. I just haven't. But yeah, Samurai Jack was quite good, And what I really loved about its idea to action was just like, what if we just, when he swings his sword, like that's a cool moment and it's like very fast. So what if we just like had that happen like 8 times instead of just once? What if we just like had lots of swing swords and it did like the classic Ninja Turtles move of what if we just made all the enemies robots so that he can actually use his sword and cut things up a lot in a way that wouldn't be okay if he were doing it on living beings.
Yeah. It's a nice workaround.
I appreciate that one. We've got Grim and Evil, which
Is that the Grim from Grim Adventures?
that was so they would air Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy thing, and they would air Evil Con Carne.
Okay.
And in the if you had to choose a side, 100%, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy is good. Evil Con Carne is fucking garbage. I never liked that show.
Great.
Never cared for it. There's Whatever Happened to Robot Jones I never watched, so I have nothing to say about it. But then Codenames Kids Next Door is kind of, was like a big thing. That's like a marker, because that felt like one of those shows that kind of took on a life of its own, both in terms of popularity and just in terms of like the feel of it. Mm-hmm. It's definitely like, feels like big and franchisey, not like this weird animation thing that it feels more like it has like a bigness of like an 80s franchise to it or something in terms of just having, and it has like ongoing plot stuff, kind of at certain points. Just a bigger show, although it also felt more kid focused in certain ways, even though it's in terms of certain episodes of like the what the structure of the episode was and the jokes. It's more conventional in a lot of ways. I don't know. It's a weird one. I have weird feelings about that because there are things about it that I think are fucking great. Like there's that one episode that's just a parody of one of the Animatrix shorts. That's like the history of children. It's just fucking unbelievably good.
Great.
Of like how kids created adults and then were enslaved by them. It's just fucking unbelievable. And it's a straight like beat by beat remake of an Animatrix short of like the history one of how the robots were created.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
See, I think Codename Kids Next Door might be the one that like I remember seeing it, not like actually watching the show, but just seeing it everywhere, like a ton.
Yeah.
And I just never, I don't know why, but I just never did it up. Maybe by the time I like actually saw it more, I was like a little bit old. I was probably into other stuff. You know what? I'm looking at 2002 to 2008.
Yeah.
Like, I probably saw it around the same point as like Avatar: The Last Airbender came out, and one of those two won.
Well, I mean,
and it wasn't Codename Kids Next Door. Like, just not even necessarily like I could only watch one of them, but I just wasn't interested at that point.
Yeah.
I remember like some of my friends were super into it. And I think my cousin was like really into it as well.
So, yeah. Yeah, it was definitely it definitely didn't grab me at first. It was only until kind of seeing that Animatrix episode really turned me around on it. That thing was fucking unbelievable. Okay, so the weirdest thing that happened with Codenames Kid Next Door to me though is that it had a crossover with Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Cause it's just fucking weird. It's just fucking bizarre. I don't know why that happened, how that happened. I mean, I get how it happened. It's just they're both Cartoon Network shows that started at the same time, but yeah, one of these shows is about the fucking Grim Reaper, and these kids are assholes, and the other one is like this such a structured like world with a mythology. It's just bizarre.
I think Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy is the show that I hear people of the ones that we're talking about. I think it's the one that I hear people like talk about now the most, like in university. Like, so I'll be like, so there's this show, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and like everyone else in the class is like, yeah, right. And the professor like has no idea what the fuck is being talked about, so he actually has to pay attention to like figure out what's going on.
Oh, weird. I mean, apparently Billy and Mandy went back into syndication in 2017.
I'm not surprised by this.
Which is weird. I mean, it had been in syndication from 2008 to 2010, then 2012 to 14, then 2017 on Cartoon Network itself. It was probably also on there. Cartoon Network has like a backup channel where they air older stuff, which is like, and it like started as like, oh, all those old cartoons we used to air on Cartoon Network, now we'll air them on this other channel. But then they also started airing their old original program. Like, it just sort of like was like the version of Cartoon Network that was like whatever, however many number of years in the past. I was like, it's just like a weird like. So if you were nostalgic for old Cartoon Network, you could watch this version if you had expanded cable. It was like how that used to be with all the old like interstitial commercial stuff, too.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other thing they did was Gendy Karakovsky made the Star Wars Clone Wars
And now the real
thing,
podcast is starting.
which I never watched. I don't
Surprise.
specifically
Star Wars podcast.
because I had no interest in prequel stuff
Wow.
at the time.
I mean,
Even from Gendy Karakovsky, who I fucking loved,
we've established why you
just-
don't like prequel stuff, though.
I just didn't.
You know the reason.
I wasn't into prequel stuff
Uh-huh.
because I didn't like those movies.
Okay. Okay. I actually never got into this. I don't know why. Because I love the prequel movies because I was young enough to not care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's your excuse, Ben? What's your excuse?
By the time I discovered there was a Clone Wars TV show, it was already too far along, and I didn't want to watch it out of order, thereby ruining the experience for myself.
I mean, George Lucas has said that this was like the pilot version of the Clone Wars, the other Clone Wars TV show. That's how he's described it.
I mean, that makes sense. That makes like I'm looking through this and I don't even see Ahsoka mentioned, and that it was a pretty big thing. So
You mean the character they made up for the other show? Yeah.
you mean the character that Lucas probably wanted? Yeah, that one. It's a sidetrack. It's a sidetrack, but apparently Lucas likes the new canon more than he likes the old canon, because the old one was way too fucking weird, and like he didn't like a lot of it. I don't know. Nice anecdote. Anyway.
Yeah, because it was people writing stuff. Well, it's because he didn't care about Star Wars at the time.
I mean, and force sensitive droids.
Luke.
Fucking yeah, and Palpatine being a clone and Luke getting married. Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, the other thing about that Clone Wars thing, I mean, really, the reason I never saw it is they never kept it in syndication.
Yeah.
No, they aired it once, and I wasn't really watching this stuff when it was new. I caught most of it on like reruns during the. I wasn't watching the hot shit every Friday night or whatever when they aired new stuff. Honestly, so I missed it when it aired the first time, and they never kind of reran it during the week or something. I don't know. Like, it's so weird to me. They made this Clone Wars cartoon, and like, it just died on the vine. Like,
well, they didn't have a strong female lead.
They made like 25 episodes or whatever.
What can you do? It's a different era.
It's a different era. Then there was Megas XLR, which is a super weird. It's just like different. It's like a more of an action thing. It feels more like made by the same company the same Hanna-Barbera that made SWAT Cats. Feels like if SWAT Cats had been the thing that got popular, Megas XLR would make more sense to me. Of just like a dude from New Jersey who has a giant robot that its head is his car.
Yeah, I'm like looking at this and I don't recognize a single damn thing at all.
Yeah, that was definitely one that didn't take off. Also,
I will give it a rating right off the bat though. I'm gonna give it a redhead out of 10. It's gonna be.
It's good. It's just kind of bizarre to be part of this lineage.
Doesn't need to be good though.
It is. I mean, I remember it being good. I haven't watched it in fucking forever. But come on, it's like a fat dude who owns a car and lives in New Jersey and has a giant robot. Come on.
No, like it looks. Some of these screenshots look pretty pretty surreal. Without knowing what's going on at all.
Mm-hmm. It definitely felt more like Fox Kids animation or something.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of what it looks like.
It's more bizarre for, I don't know. I mean, so many of those were like tie-ins to franchises. So, and really, then kind of I think of the end of this era was Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which was created by Craig McCracken and his wife, Lauren Faust, who went on to do My Little Pony. Foster's Home is very good. That's kind of like the end of this era of Cartoon Network stuff, as I see it.
Yeah, I think that that might be the one that I like the most here, and also remember. Well, maybe like the most because I remember it the most, and it's like the one that I most recently watched.
Yeah,
just
it definitely. I
because.
mean, it had a pretty long tail life.
Yeah, then the syndication, like 2009 to 14, like I was in high school, and then a little bit passed, so I'm like, oh, okay, Foster's Home, I'll do it up. I can eat my cereal while I watch this. Breakfast approved.
Yeah, it was just like a nice thing. Like it was just kind of it hit that spot of just being good and fun and weird enough, but not like actively trying to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I don't like it as much as Powerpuff Girls, but it's definitely one I watched a lot and enjoyed. I think there's a movie, like a TV movie, also.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds correct.
And it's just like a good idea of like,
oh yeah,
imaginary
100%.
friends kids have come up with that then have to live in an orphanage, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of so at this point, that's kind of the. Then I think that there's a dark era for Cartoon Network for like 3 years or whatever. Well, it was a where they're just like there's the one thing that they came out with that matters that but doesn't fit in this lineage at all is Ben 10 started during that period, and that's a fucking huge franchise thing. But other than that, there's nothing that I would point to in the. It was kind of like the end of like that era of Cartoon Network original animation that felt like it fit within this framework and came from those creators that started with What a Cartoon. It's like eventually some of those guys would do new stuff. Like Gendy Karakovsky made a new show in 2010, but even that didn't really take off. So it's like kind of the mark of the end of an era.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the next stuff that we're going to talk about is sort of starts the build up to the Adventure Time era, but isn't even big enough in itself to mark a thing.
Is Ben 10 actually good though?
I liked the original series. I don't like what I've seen. I hated Alien Force when I tried to watch that, but I liked Ben 10 enough, the original one.
Okay.
It was fine. It's no Avatar.
That sounds correct. No, I mean, is anything though? Like that really feels like there's the summation of anything. Like, hey, dude, do you want to watch insert cartoon name here? Like, I mean, I got Avatar on Blu-ray. Is there really an excuse to be watching something else? I don't.
Ben 10 is fine. It's a fine kid show. It doesn't do anything that I would say is like worth going out of your way to check out. But I enjoyed watching it when I did. I liked it enough to dislike the sequel series where they made them teenagers and changed all their voices.
There's also actually. Oh, I guess these actually started at the same time. I was going to say regular show, but that also started in 2010.
We'll get to regular show to the extent that we're going to talk about it at all. So the big one. So the big thing I should say that like, I think influences the next major two shows you have to talk about that we didn't talk about was SpongeBob SquarePants starting in '99, and that it like just ran forever. It became such a dominant force in the universe.
Yeah.
It's very, I would say, very influential. So, Chowder, really, I feel like, is like, it starts Cartoon Network having, like, an original show that has some ambition again, and, like, took off, and it just fucking was one of the things that aired all the time. Like, for whatever reason, I was watching Cartoon Network again in this era, and Chowder was on all the fucking time, and it definitely felt super influenced by SpongeBob SquarePants, and the fact that the main character sucks. He's just like a lame kid, which I feel like is like the big influencing force of SpongeBob. Is like, what if our character just had a character who's like super lame, and part of the joke is that he's weird and
Yeah.
not cool.
So, which was it? Who is it that ditched after the first movie? Was it Hillenburg?
I don't know.
Cause I don't know. I remember when SpongeBob first became a thing, and part of the big thing about it was that like even like not necessarily my parents, my dad a little bit, but like some of my uncles and stuff like they're like SpongeBob is great. Like this is fantastic. Like this is really good stuff. And
So I definitely had a different reaction to SpongeBob when it started, which was I was super in on that era of Nickelodeon's cartoons that had preceded it, and what they would do is at the end of the year, like after the midnight celebration, they would air the first episode of their new show. So like there was Angry Beavers, there was Cat Dog, and I was all in on those shows. And then SpongeBob airs, like fuck this immediately. I took a strong disliking to SpongeBob at first. I eventually came around to it mostly because I watched the movie, and I actually think that movie is great. SpongeBob is, like with South Park, I think the best thing it ever did was its first movie. But I did not take to SpongeBob as a show when it came out.
Like-
That was one of my points of like, I'm too old for this shit. I'm like, whatever.
See,
I was like
I'll go back.
12.
I'll do up fucking like I fall firmly into the camp of people who like seasons 1 through 3, fine movie, real good shit, and then like after that when whoever it was like ditched, because he was like, no, there's no point. Like we did a movie, we're done though, and Nickelodeon just overlords were like, no, you're not, and so he left, and then
Derek Drymon, it looks like the creative director, left in 2004.
And then, was it Vincent Waller then?
Vincent Waller took
Yeah,
over.
because with Ren and Stimpy, because then some of the SpongeBob humor like gets into that weird shit, like Squidward gets a toenail ripped off or something, as like they show it as like gruesome, and it's why are you show it's not cereal friendly. I can't stop, just stop it. It's gross, fucking disgusting.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
early
I always felt the Ren and Stimpy influence. It was just I didn't like the characters.
Oh, that's totally fair.
Was why I bounced, but that movie is great. So
Oh yeah,
it turned around on it to an extent. It's still not a thing I would ever. I was never like, oh, SpongeBob was on, I'll watch that. I was like, guess I'll watch. It was like always whenever I watched it, it was like as like intellectually evaluating whether it was worthwhile.
yeah.
I never,
It was
purely enjoyed it.
even when like I was little, it was. I don't think it was ever like first choice. Like it was just never there.
It certainly is on all the fucking time forever.
Yep.
It's like watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and SpongeBob is on for the next 10 hours.
I mean, yeah. 2017 began airing its 11th season and was renewed for a 12th.
Unstoppable. Kids were show kids watched on fucking GBA cartridges. Still, it started when I was in 1999. Still going strong. Unstoppable.
Yeah.
Chowder, not unstoppable. But the big thing with Chowder was that it would mix in different forms of animation where it would like cut to claymation stuff. It would cut to it had ambition in terms of its production. You could see like they were putting effort into it. Like it wasn't the jokes weren't great. The main character was like this was clearly in a SpongeBob world that the show existed, but I could see like, oh, Cartoon Network's trying again. Okay, let's see what comes of this.
Yeah.
And then so the next show they then follows in his footsteps is The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. And this one is particularly notable, which is actually the fact about this I either had completely forgotten or just learned, is that Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, worked on Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. This is kind of he got his start on this show.
Huh.
And the big thing with Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack is I can really see like how you get from here to Adventure Time. Like it's a point on the line that gets you there. But the big thing that sets Marvel's Misadventures of Flapjack off is that the main character Flapjack is much more in the SpongeBob vein of he sucks. As he's a kid that's like will shout adventure, but is like a complete pansy kind of. So that he's like a wannabe pirate adventurer character who hangs out with a drunk pirate guy who's a complete burnout, and his mother is a whale. It was very nice. It's sort of the setup, and then it does interesting stuff with how it's animated. But it's definitely like this world is like dark, and he lives in this weird pirate like fort thing, and has adventures with this drunk pirate guy. So it's like there's like it's dark, but also it has like this lighthearted charm. It's kind of, it just doesn't, there are like elements in it that like end up being elements I would describe of Adventure Time, but it's definitely not put together as well, and it doesn't come together in nearly the same way. But you can start to see like it's part of like the historian thing in me is like, oh yeah, I see the line here. I see the lineage. How you get from Chowder to Flapjack to Adventure Time is like a big thing to me.
Like Chowder and then Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. Like
also they're both have food terms in the names, so
yeah, probably rules them out for like cereal. I don't like the implications. Things named after food just doesn't sit right. Doesn't sit right. Why are you called Chowder? Why is this show called Chowder? I want to know. No, but for real though, like
I mean, because it's about cooking. Like that show is about food. All the characters are named after food.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
I don't know. It could just be a show that makes you hungry, so then you want to eat.
Maybe.
It's just like Food Wars.
I mean, I was gonna say it's like anime, except it doesn't make me furious. I'm hungry and I'm upset. I've never, before you mentioned them, I didn't even recognize the names of like Chowder or like Flapjack.
You know, they were the two like biggest shows on Cartoon Network before Adventure Time happened, basically.
I think, and you know what? I think it's because like that period of time, I'm looking like 2007, 2008. I was no longer like I wasn't really watching whatever happened to be on. I just wasn't seeing anything that interested me.
Yeah, no. Then that was definitely a period where I'd like come back to cartoons.
Like Class of,
like the other thing that came out during that time, which was the show I actually liked the most of these three, was there was a Transformers show, Transformers Animated, that was kind of done by the team that did the first Teen Titans cartoon. So I was super into that, which was part of the reason I was like into cartoons again.
I think I did. I'm looking at this list here. I did a bit of I watched Class of 3000 because a tasty soundtrack basically.
Yeah, a lot of those other shows in the meantime were stuff I didn't ever see because that was when I wasn't watching.
Yep.
So in so the history of what a cartoon, like the influence of what a cartoon is, it spawned many. It kind of became like a model for companies to follow. Like Nickelodeon did a bunch of them. Cartoon Network did subsequent ones, but it really was only that first one that was really important and influential. There are a bunch of ones that like kind of not that much interesting came out of them, but sort of around this area in like 2009, 2008, both Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network did their own. And the Cartoon Network one they ran, which was run by Craig McCracken, but then he like quit Cartoon Network to go off on his own. And that's regular show came out of that one is kind of the big one. Also, sorry, threw up a little. Uncle Grandpa came out of that one.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, that's terrible.
In terms of, shows that are made to make you feel uncomfortable.
Also, that was like far too convincing. Like I was for like 2 seconds I was like, "Wait, what?"
Oh man. Look.
I thought you legitimately were like throwing
No, it's fucking Uncle Grandpa. The worst. The worst.
No, it's fucking trash, dude. I remember Peter was really excited for it for some reason. I don't know why. Like there was never a point that it looked good, and then like even he watched it, and it's it's garbage.
Yeah. I think there was another show that I just never watched, so I didn't end up mentioning it, but I don't even remember what that was, and I've lost track. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking of. But so Nickelodeon ran one, and that's where the Adventure Time pilot got made.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch the Adventure Time pilot, it's not good.
Yeah,
but specifically, so in that like the main character is called Penn, but he's basically just Finn. And really, if you look at Misadventures of Flapjack and that Adventure Time pilot, it actually I could see why an executive would look at those two things and say, there's something here. We can make a good show. Yeah. It's not this short, but if you take this character, this kid who's like into fighting and adventure and like, but not in a way, and not in like an ironic way. Like in Flapjack would shout adventure, but like the show is constantly making fun of him for that.
Yeah.
Like that he's like, the world is dark and you're an idiot, kid. This is like the earnest version of that, of just a kid who's into that stuff, but also and like kind of cool or whatever, at least. So
cool might be.
I mean, it's pushing it, but just that you build the show around that in terms of you could have like the darkness of the world, but play it more straight in terms of this kid going on adventures or whatever. Like you kind of get to Adventure Time from that.
Yeah.
Whereas like, so that like picking on Finn in Adventure Time, like again, a lot of Adventure Time ends up being the writers trying to make Finn cry, but
you're not wrong.
I mean, I've heard the writers specifically describe it that way. But it's not like, I don't know, it's more earnest. I don't quite know the right words for it, but he's not quite a joke character, and I think that makes it work better when they then make him cry.
Mm-hmm.
Although like that kind of develops as the show goes on. But that's kind of and then we're at Adventure Time. It's kind of
we're here. We made it.
That's the road. There's another.
Yeah, it's definitely.
There's another Pendleton Ward pilot in there that I just want to mention briefly. Bravest Warriors, which is like also got picked up by Cartoon Hangover, which is like a YouTube animation thing.
Okay. And
that show's actually pretty. I read actually what I really liked about Bravest Warriors was the comic book, because it was written by a writer I really like, who did a webcomic called A Softer World, and he wrote a book called Overqualified, which is like it's written as a series of cover letters for job applications. And it's written by a person who's clearly like having a nervous breakdown. It's like written out through his like saying way too much in his cover letters.
Yeah.
It's good times. But you can see more of like Bravest Warriors, I would say, is more of like Pendleton Ward's sensibilities rather than like this lineage of the Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, and then the influence of like Rebecca Sugar stuff that then comes in from the other end, I would say, and leads to Steven Universe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's I think. Do you have any other thoughts before we call it on this journey?
Not really. I'll certainly have way more when we like do Adventure Time. Like this was very educational for me, just because like I didn't watch as much of this shit, so like I know it exists, but you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting though.
Yeah, this is what happens when you watch way too much fucking TV.
I was too busy watching Avatar constantly. Like, I don't know. Got those blinders on.
I mean, most of this stuff happened before Avatar was a thing.
Yeah, but I wasn't old enough to
Yeah.
internalize it.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think that's a podcast.
Yeah.
So you can email us at saltcirclepodcast@gmail.com, soundcloud.com/saltcircle. Find us on Twitter at saltcirclepod. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Salt Circle Podcast, other podcast places. And you can find me on Twitter at Comic Panels.
And I'm on Twitter at bean_LP.
Oh, God. I dropped a thing.
Oh,
God.
Best way to end.
Is it? Is it, though?
I mean, better than throwing up partway through.
Oh, God.
That was.
Oh, God.
I don't know. Just like how you started, like it was unexpected.
It was
I thought you were going to
very
die on
planned in
podcast.
advance.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's a good note to end on. Uncle Grandpa's garbage.
It's
You
so
like it,
bad.
I don't know
Oh my
how I feel
God.
about you as a person.
So
I'll say it.
mad
I'll
that
say
it had
it.
a crossover with Steven Universe.
Yeah. What
So mad.
a non-canon episode,
I will
actually.
never watch that episode.
Nope.
I'm not gonna do it.
No, it's not worth. It's absolutely not worth it.
I got enough ads for Uncle Grandpa while I was watching Steven Universe stuff initially. Ugh.
That's gross. Disgusting.